Hello, my friends, and thank you so much for returning to me for another lesson, because I've got a really cool one for you today. Something to build and to test and to fly outside, and hey, it might even come back to you. What am I talking about anyway? Well, I've got a story for you. Let's go back in time, long, long ago, to talk about a tool that appeared around the world, all around the world, at different times, but long, long ago. And there were depictions of this tool being thrown at animals in rock art in Australia 50,000 years ago, but also depictions of it being used in battles, for starting fires, for making music, even as decoys to distract animals in hunting, and then also in games for recreational play. What could this thing be? One was found in Australia that is 10,000 years old. And they have also found them in Europe, Egypt, and North America. In fact, in Poland, in the Oblazawa cave, they found one that was 30,000 years old. And in Egypt, in King Tut's tomb, there was a collection of these tools. An entire collection of these. What are these? They're boomerangs. You might have heard of them before. And you know, a boomerang is a thrown tool that has a very interesting flat airfoil shape to it. And what is an airfoil? It's a wing shape. Boomerangs have several of them. It helps them to fly and to do some other things too. And there's two types of boomerangs. Ones that can return and ones that can't, because they were used for different things, as you heard, especially with hunting. Sometimes they would be thrown over birds to distract them and scare them so they could be snared in nets. And in other times, they were lobbed and very heavy to injure an animal or get it to collapse so it could be rushed on and captured. Boomerangs have been used for a lot of different things, and they've been found all over the world. And today, we're going to learn how to make one out of some of our modern materials. So, we're going to build one of those four-wing, crossbarred boomerangs. Simple construction, simple materials. And what do you need to get one of these going for you? You'll need some scissors or a box cutter to make some nice straight cuts with a nice straight edge or ruler. And to mark where those cuts are going to be, make sure you have a pencil. And to tape everything together, tape, although you could use glue. And don't forget, some cardboard. This is just a flap from a box, and it should be more than enough to make a couple of these, but you can use a pizza box or anything that's got a nice thick cardboard to it. And if you're interested in decorating, some markers, colored pencils, paint, anything that will get some fantastic prints and designs on it. So what do you do next? Well, go ahead and clear your tools out of the way so you can get started on the first step. Get your cardboard ready, and you're going to measure and cut out two rectangles. They're going to be 14 inches long and 1.5 inches thick. So grab your ruler and your pencil. You can start at one of those straight edges to give you a good place to begin. And measure over 1.5 inches and make a mark. Then go ahead and measure another 1.5 inches and make a mark. Now, along the side, you're going to measure 14 inches, but you know, my ruler only has 12 inches. How many more do I need to get to 14? 2. So, I'm going to measure that 12 inches with a very small mark, and then I'm going to add 2 more inches to that. I'm actually going to do the same thing from one of these marks I made up at the top. I'm going to do my best to hold that straight, measure all the way down to 12 with a very tiny mark, and then adding 2 inches to that, trying to keep my ruler as straight as possible. And depending on how you're using the cardboard, if you see these lines, they might help you. In fact, my mark's totally line up along one of those lines there. So go ahead and connect those two dots. And then, remember that little mark you put here? You're going to connect to the very top line that you put up there. Which will leave a little gap down here that you'll need to close up. You should see a nice big rectangle on that cardboard, but remember, we first measured 1.5 inches over. We still have to make that line as well. And now that you have this line there, you should be able to line up your ruler fairly straight. This is a homemade boomerang. If there's some small issues of accuracy with measurements and such, it is not going to be a very big deal for the finished product. Okay. What we've got to do now is cut out these two bars. And you know, if you're feeling like you want to make a whole bunch of these, you could just keep measuring across and cut all of those out. But I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right. Once you have those two pieces cut out, there's another little bit of cutting that we're going to have to do. So go ahead and grab your ruler. And from each side, you want to measure 1/4 inch. From the corner across the top. So from this corner, 1/4 inch over and mark it. From this corner, 1/4 inch over and mark it. And then you're going to do the same thing down on each side. 1/4 inch from the corner right there and mark it. And same on this side. 1/4 inch there from that corner and mark it. And now connect each of those marks at each corner to create a small triangle. See those two triangles? Cut them off. That'll give each of these blades a nice wing shape on the end there. And so go ahead and do that on the other end and on both ends of your other piece. All right, so you've got those cut, and look at how nice they look. The next step is to attach these together. You're going to do your best to find the center of both of them. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but it should be as close as you can visually estimate. And then grab your tape, and you're going to tape across this side, and you're going to tape across the other side as well. You can trim off excess tape with a pair of scissors, but if it's close enough, you might be able to just push it against the cardboard and stick it. Same thing on the other side. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is decide, are you left-handed or right-handed? Because you're going to throw this differently depending on which hand you're using. And there's something different you're going to do depending on which of these you're going to be using. If you are a left-hand thrower, you're going to be probably throwing it like this. This will be the leading edge. If you're a right-hand thrower, you're going to be throwing it like this, and this will be the leading edge. So decide, are you left or are you right? Because then we're going to need to crimp our leading edges. Now, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be crimping this edge. And by crimping, I mean, you see how we had already measured out that tip over 1/4 of an inch? What you need to do is just go ahead and curve that edge. Just pinch it down just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just slightly curved. You want it to be able to scoop that air. And you're going to do that on all of these blades on the same side. Trying to crimp to about 1/4 of an inch, so starting at the end right about where you cut that little triangle to. So there you can sort of see what I'm talking about. See how it sort of curves just a little bit. Just a little bit. Should help it scoop that air nicely. Now, the other thing we want to do, because this is all a bit of tuning that we're doing right now, just fine-tuning the physical construction of this so that it can make the best use of air. We're going to add something called dihedral. And dihedral is the curvature of wings so that as they're moving, they're not just on a flat plane, but that they curve up. So take each of your blades and just slightly bend and curve it up. And it doesn't have to be a lot. A little bit of dihedral goes a long way, and you can already see it's just slightly curved. And you want to do about the same to all of them. But you know, this is another thing you can experiment with. How much dihedral is awesome and how much is too much? And what happens if I give different dihedral to all 4 of the propellers? Or what if there's none at all? You can track these things. You can track distance and you can track height if you have some way to get up there and measure it. All right, so check that out, just a little bit of dihedral. And now the next thing that we should do is probably grab a Sharpie or some paint or markers or something and decorate this. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll take a look at it and we'll get out there and see how it flies. All right, friends, we're ready to give this thing a whirl. Follow me outside and let's check out what we can do with one of these. Hey friends, it's a beautiful day for a boomerang. And it is a little bit breezy, but I think this should work. Now, before we test these little beauties out, I want to talk a little bit about how it works and how to throw it. You see, what you've got here is basically like the top of a helicopter. There's 4 wings attached around a center. And as they spin, each one is cutting into the air and helping to give it some lift. As it's spinning, it's getting more and more lift because each wing is cutting into that air and climbing a little bit more. Remember that dihedral you gave it? That's going to help it climb. If it was just a flat plane, imagine it going across a flat plane. With that curve, it's going to scoop higher and higher and then come back to you. Now, when you're going to throw it, you're going to hold it next to your head. Now, obviously, I'm not going to throw it at you right now. I'd be throwing it that way. But you're going to hold it next to your head, and you're going to chuck it, not like a frisbee, the opposite way, straight like that. And remember, you already crimped one of those sides that's going to be biting into the wind, and so for mine, this is that leading edge. So I'm chopping into the wind that way. Now, if it doesn't work quite well, there's a little bit of advice I can give you, is to just change the angle just a little bit, and you can play with that angle and how you're throwing it and see what the effect of that is, and you can graph it, and you can track it, and you can improve this, and you can make it bigger, and you can make it smaller, and you can add more wings, and you can add less wings, and, well, let's get busy throwing it. Watch this. Woohoo! So as you see, after a couple throws even, you might start to get the hang of it, and then you might start to get some ideas on how to make this thing work for you. So do go out there, do have some fun. This was super easy to build, so build a whole bunch, try some different things, and friends, I'll see you again soon.